Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Mr. Sebastian Rusk. But before bringing up Sebastian to the stage, I want to thank one of our amazing sponsors, Legacy Navigator. Let me ask you something. Are you ready to truly own your future? Franchising is one of the most powerful ways to build a business, and that's what Legacy Navigator is all about. Whether you're exploring franchise opportunities, growing an emerging brand, franchising your existing business, or searching for funding, Legacy Navigator is your guide. This isn't just another business service. It's authentic. It's real. A disruptive movement built on the power of franchising, designed to help entrepreneurs, veterans, first responders, public servants, and professionals ready to break free from corporate life, build generational wealth, and leave a lasting legacy. With hundreds of proven franchise brands, smart funding strategies, and insider knowledge, Legacy Navigator cuts through the noise and gives you a trusted path forward. So stop waiting, stop wondering. Go to www.authentic.legacynavigator.group today to find your spark, unlock your future, and ignite your legacy. Now, here he is, Sebastian. How you doing today, Sebastian?
All good, Marques. How you doing, man? It's good to be here.
Thanks for coming on, my friend. Look forward to having you on today. First question, Sebastian. What does the word authentic/authenticity mean to you?
You know, I heard a quote a long time ago from my good friend, Gary V. Some of you may have heard of him. And he said to me, Sebastian, authenticity trumps likability. And when I think about authentic, it's about being who I am in here is who I am out there. And if that's not the case, well, then I'm out of alignment and integrity with who I really am. So that's a long-winded answer as far as what authentic and authenticity means. But I believe most importantly, it's being true to ourselves. And when we're true to ourselves and showing up in the best version of ourselves, we're able to show up for other people in the same way.
You know, Sebastian heard lots of great sayings to what that word means to people. And I love how you said authenticity trumps likability. You have to be true to who you are. If you're not true to who you are, what happens is you live a life of being fake and phony. And that's nowhere to live. That's nowhere to be. Sebastian, tell us a bit more about yourself, where you're from, and then what you're doing currently now with your work.
Absolutely. So my story started about 15 years ago. I was living in Southern California and had been out there for about almost 9 years and had a marketing company that serviced real estate companies. Well, we all know what happened in 2008 and the market crashed. Banks stopped lending. People stopped buying real estate because there was no money to actually lend. And Newport Beach was a very expensive place to be when you're going broke. So I decided that it was time to come back to Miami and start all over again. So I packed up the few things that I had not sold on Craigslist or given away, my daughter's stuff, shoved everything in a duffel bag, and moved back to Miami with humble beginnings. From 2008 to 2010, I kind of just sat around and felt sorry for myself. How did I achieve a certain amount of success and then lose it all? And I quickly realized that, well, with a little bit of ego and too much money, you have a recipe for disaster. So those days, I'd make Kanye look humble. So when I moved back, I knew it was time to start over. I just didn't know where. So I spent a couple of years sucking my thumb, feeling sorry for myself. I think a lot of people did that during that time. And then I woke up one day, I had an awakening moment. I said, I need to go see Tony Robbins. So I called up my friend Whitney, who worked for Tony at the time. She gives me all the details about how to actually get to Tony's Unleash the Power Within event. And I just put it on the chalkboard and said, okay, well, at least I know how to get there. I got like $6 to my name. I don't know how it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen. Well, she calls me back about an hour later and said, oh, I totally forgot to tell you. My best friend works for Tony as well. She's actually a part of his core team of 6. She travels the world with him, and she lives on Miami Beach. I think it would be a good introduction for you. Now, at this point, Marques, I'm like, I don't know what in the world I could potentially bring to the table for somebody who works for Tony freaking Robbins. But we've restarted the process of just showing up. So I met her for a drink that Friday afternoon on Miami Beach, and we were talking for a few minutes, and she looked at me and she said, Sebastian, what's next? And I said, I don't know. And she said, that is a problem. Now, that's the PG version that she gave me. You could use your imagination on how I felt that this girl came at me when she asked me what's next. And I said, I don't know. And she said, that's a problem. And these are my offended days. So I'm thinking, I don't know what this broad thinks she's doing, telling me what I'm doing with my life is a problem. But then I quickly checked myself and said, well, she works for the great Tony Robbins. You do not. You took a bus here. You got like $6 to your name. And she lives in a condo on the water up the street. Let's stay humble. So I said, so what do you mean? She goes, I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. Let me ask you another question. And Marques, this is where everything changed. She said, Sebastian, who's missing out because you're not showing up? And I thought, I've never even thought about that. I was so in my own way and so self-consumed in my own pity that I didn't stop for a second to realize that maybe, just maybe, someone was missing out on me. Now, when she continued to elaborate on that, she said, I've known you 10 minutes. Your energy's contagious. You've got a talent. You've been active on social media since the beginning. You could start a YouTube channel. You could get out there. You could do this, that, and the other. Well, that Monday, I had conceptualized what would be my first company, which was Social Buzz TV. And it was going to be an online media outlet where I would educate people about social media, and I would invite them to boot camps and come to my networking events. And eventually they would say, maybe you can help me out with my social media, and they would hire me. And that's exactly what happened. And shortly around that time, I met a guy by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk, and Gary and I quickly became friends, and he became an incredible mentor in my life. This was before he became a worldwide phenomenon, and he really helped pave the way and help me understand what it meant to build a personal brand, and that a personal brand in perpetuity is your reputation. And I never forgot that. So I continued to build my personal brand as a speaker. I wrote my first book. I used to MC events, continued to grow the agency. And then in 2016, I woke up one day and I said, I hate all of this. I hate the bow ties that I wear. I hate being an event MC. That is the worst job in the building. People were like, what do you mean? Well, I thought it was being the star of the show. It's not. You're a hired gun, and you're not allowed to leave the stage ever. And you're the first one there and the last one to leave. So I quickly realized after a gig didn't go so well in Boise, Idaho, don't ever go there, that I was no longer going to do that. And that speaking, as you know, is so much easier. Show up, maybe a dinner the night before, a production meeting, come give your talk, maybe a happy hour, and you're on your way home. So I decided that I would establish some new non-negotiables. But what I didn't know is that there was some work that still needed to be done on me. And in March of 2016, I decided it was time for a girlfriend. So I got on a dating app, and careful what you ask for, because that's exactly what I got. I met a girl March 1st, 2016, went and met her for a beer in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And she said, I'm in this personal development course that's really changing my life for the better. I think you should check it out. My ego immediately steps in, and I was like, tell me about personal development. Tony Robbins, been there twice, walked on fire, the landmark form. What I didn't tell her was that I didn't do anything with the work that I actually learned through this training. So she said, hey, I think you should check this course out. I think it would really be a benefit for you. And I was extremely resistant, as we always are when it's time to go in. She said, a couple of weeks later, she just called me on a Friday night and said, well, I just signed you up, and you start next Friday. And I'm grateful for that. Her role in my life was not to be the love of my life. Her role in my life for a very short time was to show up, to love me enough to get me through those doors so that I could go through an 8-day course that would forever alter the path that I was on in my life. And when I came out of those doors, a couple of things happened. Number one, I realized I didn't hate what I was doing. I hated myself. And when you hate yourself, you hate everything around you, what you're doing. D, all of the above. So the most important thing that I did during that was I learned how to love myself. And when I learned how to love myself, I was able to take back my power and also step into my power at the same time. I was able to forgive mom, forgive dad, move on, and just realize they did the best they possibly could do with the resources they had. And when I came out of that training, a couple months later, I dusted myself off, single again, but healed, on a new trajectory for life. went and rented a desk at a co-working space around the corner here in Coral Gables, ran into an old friend who had an internet radio show in that co-working space. And I said, what the hell is that? And she was like, what, but, eat, but. She really couldn't explain it. And I said, well, you can just start a podcast. She goes, I don't know how to do that. Why don't you walk me down to my car? Let's chat more than that. She was really cute. So I was okay with walking her down to her car. And we get down to her car, I'll never forget it. She pokes me in the chest and she goes, why don't you create a solution to help people start a podcast? And when I say another defining moment where the antennas went up, because I had built a pretty substantial brand, became a speaker, I wrote a book, I did all the things within the social media and digital space. So how do you leave that, but still stay in it? Podcasting, bingo. So I went up to my rented desk and I mapped out what would become the Podcast Launch Lab, wrote it down, 3 sheets of paper with a pencil, and said the Podcast Launch Lab is a turnkey podcast launch solution to take business owners from idea to iTunes in 90 days or less so that they can network with anyone, grow their business, get their social media content game in check, and become a better communicator. That was around this time 10 years ago, which is wild to even say. And I literally have not looked back since, and we have grown this into a multiple 6-figure brand. My speaking business continues to thrive. I started doing comedy about 4 years ago because I realized I'm not only funny looking, I'm actually funny too. And when we can take humor and integrate it into any type of communication, well, winner, winner, chicken dinner. But up until this point, that's my story, Marques, and I'm sticking to it.
Sebastian, I love this because, ladies and gentlemen, what I hope you got from that segment, and I sure did, is that if you don't like yourself, if you don't love yourself, you're going to struggle no matter what it is that you're doing. So, Sebastian, for me, when I filed for divorce from my ex and I moved into that apartment for about 7 months, that first 2.5 months in that apartment, it was absolutely dreadful in every way you can think of. And again, I'm 100% agreeing with what you're saying because I hated myself. I felt like a failure, a fraud, a phony. And I was just basically getting up every morning out of bed, struggling to do so, empowering through the day, doing things that I really love to do. But at that time, I didn't want to do because I didn't love myself. But again, you heard Sebastian say that he had some people around him that inspired him to push forward. And that's all that we need in life. If we don't believe in ourselves, we should work on that, but definitely have people that believe in you around you. And I love that. Sebastian, let's talk more about what you do with trying to help people start a podcast. Now, Ben, who's my producer, we talk about this all the time. So many people think you could start a podcast, do maybe 5, 10 episodes, you should be the next Joe Rogan. You should have all these downloads and life should be good and gold, stuff like that. And we all know that's not true. Can you explain to people what starting a podcast not only does for you, but also explain to them that the process that like you've gone through, I've gone through, all people that have good shows go through to get to the point, right, Sebastian, where your show is recognized by people for achieving high-level things?
Well, I want to, for starters, I want to burst everybody's bubble that if you think you're going to be the next Joe Rogan, I'm not telling you that you can't do something, but most people won't get there. I steer completely clear of any downloads, numbers, metrics, vanity metrics, because we live in a world and a society now where we now judge someone based on how many times that someone watched their video. If I go to your YouTube channel and you have 10 views, your content is trash. That's what society tells us. If I go to your YouTube channel and you have 1 million downloads, you're a rock star. That's just how we operate. So I'm trying to, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. I try to do all of that. YouTube's a bad example because podcasts do not belong on YouTube. I'm happy to dive into that rant when we get done with this point here. But the biggest mistake people make is trying to do all the work themselves. I'm going to start the podcast, record the podcast, edit the podcast, burn the midnight oil. I don't care how much you say you enjoy the process. I'm going to call BS on it every time because it's not fun. because when you have to host the show, edit the show, post the show, distribute the show, all the things, sure, for the first couple episodes, may be easy peasy. But eventually it starts to feel like work. And when it feels like work, and it's not fun. And when it's not fun, we quit. That's just human nature. So what point I try to drive home to people is, can you start a podcast on your own? Absolutely. I could change the oil in my car if I really wanted to. Could also drive around the corner to Jiffy Lube, give the dude $75 and be out of there in 10 minutes. So it's just a matter of knowing what you should be doing and should not be doing. My coach, the great Dan Martell, wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. And it talks about what can you invest into to buy back more of your time, to stop working in your business, but instead work on your business. There's a huge difference between those two. But I think that there's a reason you should start a podcast. And I've identified 3 reasons, and I've lived these 3 reasons, and I teach these 3 reasons. And now I get to empower other people to double down on this strategy and watch the fruit that it bears. Reason number 1, starting a podcast allows you to network with people that you want to do business with. It is the ultimate networking tool. It is a bridge builder. It is a relationship builder. It is a money generator, a biz dev tool. It allows you to be everywhere without being everywhere. It is a contact sport that people actually love. If I call you trying to sell my thing, well, what do you know? Who's not trying to sell their thing? But if I meet you at an event, or we meet at an airport, or whatever it may be, and I'm like, hey man, I would love to connect further with you, Marques. Let's get you on the podcast, which by the way is exactly what we did. And we ended up on each other's podcasts. Funny how that works, isn't it? Amazing. But number 1 reason you want to start a podcast is to interview people you want to do business with. Yeah, but aren't people becoming aware of that? Yeah, they are. But aren't people aware of sales calls and sales meetings and ask? Absolutely. You know what they're also aware of? That they have gaping holes in their business and they need solutions for those gaping holes. And those solutions are identified through meaningful conversations. Marques, I just want to get you on the podcast, make it all about you, learn about you, network with you a little bit, better understand what you're all about, what you do, who you serve, how I can help you. And then, oh, by the way, if there's an opportunity for you and I to work together, I'd love to explore what that conversation looks like. Drastically different, non-abrasive, non-salesy. It allows me to show up and do something for you first. Second reason, to get your social media content game in check and consistent because of the podcast. 1 podcast episode, multiple pieces of micro content for Reels and TikTok and LinkedIn and Facebook and blog posts and all of the above. All of the things that you're currently not doing right now. And if you're a business owner listening to this right now, this may be very triggering, and I hope that it is. I hope it triggers you to your core and moves you into massive action, because the attention is in the newsfeed. It's where the eyeballs are at. It's not in newspapers and magazines and billboards and television. It is in the newsfeed, because we are digitally addicted to our phones. That's just a reality of where we're at. And if you are not showing up in the newsfeed, people just don't know about you. Unless you hate money, you need to make sure that you're doing that. A podcast fills that void. The last is becoming a better communicator. People's number 1 fear, public speaking. Number 2, dying. Riddle me that one. Majority of people, I would never get in front of a camera. I can't get in front of a mic. I'm not good. I can't talk in front of a. Okay, cool. I always say, now that we've talked about everything you can't do, can we talk about the things that you can do? And I believe that having a podcast forces you in front of the microphone. It forces you in front of a camera. It gives you an at-bat every single time you record a podcast episode. And what happens then? That bleeds over into your public speaking, your communication with clients, your communication with people, how you talk, how you use your big words, how you're aware of filler words, and how you show up, and how many times you may or may not say like every other word, or because you are not refined with your communication. You and I are refined with our communication because we're professional communicators, and we have been honing our craft for a very long time. Most people have not, but they want to. And I believe podcasting, when I say can radically change your life, communication part, and business, new business part, I mean it. Why? Well, I feel qualified to say that because I've lived it. I continue to live it. And now I get the unique gift and privilege of empowering other people to do the same exact thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, all three of Sebastian's rules or reasons I agree with 1000%. So, Sebastian, you may or may not know this gentleman. His name is Gus Farrat. He was the quarterback for the Washington Redskins back in the mid 90s. Dear friend of mine. I tell him every time we talk, thank you, Gus. And he always says, Mark, stop saying that. I said, no. I'm going to tell you thank you every time I talk to you because, Sebastian, I had a podcast with another individual and I ended up stopping that podcast because me and my co-host couldn't agree on things and he got greedy and we were not able to see eye to eye. So I walked away and I promised myself I would never do another podcast. And Gus said, Marcus, you're too good not to. 4 times, Sebastian, 4. It took him 4 times to get me to say yes. And everything Sebastian said is true, from business growth and advancement and expansion to working on my craft as a speaker. When you're talking to people, being aware of what you say, how you say it, your tone, not using fillers, things of that nature, 100%. It's all about also expanding your network. Without a doubt. Right now, Sebastian, in our nurture system right now, there are over 100 people that are waiting, going through our nurture process that want to be interviewed on our podcast. And I've never met any of them because if they email me, I say, please fill out this form. Someone will get back to you. Ladies and gentlemen, and that's the last thing I'm going to ask about with Sebastian. Systems. Systems were built or should be built to help you do these things. Save yourself stress, time, energy, money. System, the acronym. Dan Martell says it best. Sebastian, I love that saying. Please talk about how working with somebody like yourself, right, Sebastian, or a Ben, or anybody that can take those heavy grunt-like tasks off you, build a system and put time back in your pocket, especially around the podcast industry, is a great move. And again, it's a great investment in yourself. And I tell people all the time, never negotiate with yourself when it comes to investing in yourself.
Yeah. When you the next time you're hesitant about investing in yourself, go back to the last time you invested in yourself and ask yourself if you've ever been disappointed when you invested into yourself. More times than not, the answer is an astounding no. And that's why I am all in when it comes to coaching. I'm all in when it comes to better understanding what I don't know that I don't know. I probably spend close to 30 grand a year just on coaching and travel to constantly figure it out and constantly peel back those layers. I'm sure you've heard the story before of the great Michelangelo creating the statue of David, and people were in awe of this statue as he was creating it. And they would say things like, Michelangelo, how could you create something so beautiful? And he said, I didn't create David. I simply chipped away at everything that wasn't David. And one day, David appeared. So my question to you is, what are you chipping away at on a daily basis to constantly become who you need to be? If you're listening to this right now and this resonates with you and you thought, I knew about podcasts. I like podcasts. I listen to podcasts. I own a business. I kind of thought about it. I've never thought about it. Whatever is showing up for you right now, where you're like, you know what, this is worth a closer look. We've created a done for you solution. It is geared towards 7 to 9 figure business owners who are ridiculously busy, have very little time to dedicate to it, but are fully committed to doing it because they understand it's their responsibility. It's a benefit to their business. It solves a lot of the problems and gaping holes that you currently may have in there. So if you think that starting a podcast is what your next move is, and you absolutely need some assistance with it, which by the way, you do, you need someone to come in and help you create the strategy, brand, concept, idea, who you're talking to, what you're talking about, how you're talking about it, why you're talking about it, where you're talking about it, how do I get it into Apple, how do I get it into to Spotify, how do I interview somebody, what do I ask, what kind of interviews do I do, how do I do this, what kind of microphone. We have created a 90-day done for you and done with you. Done with you is because we don't record the episodes for you, but you get the opportunity to work with me one-on-one. And my team does all the execution of what we get to create. We spend the first 30 days together and we create an entire strategy, brand, concept, idea, and every single thing you could ever possibly need to launch a podcast, including your first 2 episodes. And then we launch the show and we immediately put you into our podcast incubator program that allows us to continue to support you on an ongoing basis with 4 episodes a month and then 12 pieces of micro content to post on social media and full access to myself and my team. So what this allows you to do is record the episodes, upload the raw content, and move on with your day. And we found over the past decade that seems to be the most effective way to be able to execute a podcast strategy and have it become not just something we should be doing, but an actual non-negotiable for your business. So if that sounds like something that resonates with you, Marques is going to have the link to my calendar in the show notes and description of this podcast episode. But on top of that, I got a special gift for your audience, Marques, if that's okay with you. My Instagram handle, which is going to be in the show notes as well, make it easy for everybody listening. It's at Podcast Suck. That's podcast plural. So 2 S's at Podcast Suck. I want you to find me on Instagram and send me a DM with the word authentic. I've got a free gift that I want to share with your audience just for taking time out of your day to hang out with us and listen to this episode. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Marques as well, that you could be doing a lot of things, but you decided to stop and listen to this episode. And I really hope that you are leaving this episode with at least 1 or 2 things that you came for and didn't even know that you came for.
Ladies and gentlemen, phenomenal interview with Sebastian. Please reach out to him. We'll have information in the show notes. We want to thank our amazing sponsor and collaborative partner, Legacy Navigator, Mr. Jack Brown. And here is the authentic tip of this great interview. In life, you have to learn that you don't know everything and bring people around you and partner with people. Invest in yourself to get the maximum return on that investment for yourself. It's so key. And that is so important in life and in business. Bring in people that are experts that allow you to put time back into your pocket. Again, my name is Marques Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marques show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.
Recording stopped.
Sebastian, thank you, sir.